be here. I appreciate being invited to this conference. I know it's small, but most of the time the small conferences become better because you get to interact with people and get to know them much at the personal level than you just go to the presentation, which we do in the AURA. I'm following this conference with the AURA conference, that some of you may know, that you go to the conference and you really don't get to see a lot of, do get to see a lot of people, but don't get to interact a lot with people. But it's a pleasure to be here. The topic of my presentation is coming from a concern that we had at our own university and the North Carolina system in general, because we have 16 campuses under North Carolina university system, and in the state, at the national level, United States, distance education has been moving a lot faster than we as faculty would like it to go. And at our institution, we value teaching a lot. So going online and at distance and keeping the quality of instruction at the high level that we've expected it to be has been really a challenge. And that's the whole idea of this new generation of online learning came from that concern that we had as faculty. Basically, I organized my presentation around these topics. Hopefully, I'll be able to get through most of it. Maybe I have to run through some of the results of this study that we have done, but given the time frame. But basically, talk about what this new generation of online learning looking like. I'm sure you all have some experiences, but I will basically share my view and our campus view for most part on this issue, and then review some main points in the literature, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, to see what are the main issues that we picked out of the literature and tried to work on that as part of delivering of online courses, and then share with you the framework that we developed for our study that we started conducting on the same topic to make sure what we're doing, we have appropriate results to support our view of the distance education. And basically the rest of the presentation will be around this study that we've done. So what were our concerns? Our concerns were around a couple areas. How we provide quality teaching and learning when we go completely online. When I'm talking about online, completely 100% online, not just the blended learning, that you have some face-to-face and some online. So we were concerned at how we can keep the quality of our courses of teaching and learning as we go completely online, and in that area, we want to know how we sustain and enhance the students' high level of interaction, because we have a lot of interaction in our courses. As I said, teaching is valued tremendously on our campus, so we wanted to know how we can keep that high level of interaction in our courses, and also how we can provide multiple forms of interaction in our courses without losing that side of the instructional support, and then provide high level of emotional and cognitive support. I know as humans we have affect and cognition very much combined, so we want to make sure that our students are emotionally supported as much as they are cognitive supported. The other area of concern was how we can appeal to diverse group of learners. Nowadays, we have this opportunity of students taking online courses, and they may not be in the local area that we used to have, so we can't really control the backgrounds and experiences of the students. In addition to that, for our Instructional Technology program that I'm going to focus more on, because that's what we started implementing our new view of online learning, we have students from a lot of different backgrounds. Some of them are complete professionals that are working in different kind of position right now. We have students that are coming from public education, they're teachers, there are administrators at the school system, and we have people who are coming from government agencies. Just the background of the students diverse enough. If you even ignore the cultural and ethnic differences, so how we can keep that in our online classes and not lose some of our students, which our panel perhaps discussed that a little bit in that area as well. The other issue was the pedagogy. As I said, on our campus, there are lots of value for project-based learning, community-based learning. Learning communities are very, very emphasized nowadays in the United States, particularly in North Carolina, and on our campuses. So a lot of hands-on, project-based learning, problem-based learning, role play. This type of pedagogy is very, very successful. They've been very successful, and we've been, emphasizing this type of pedagogy. So how could we do that in online learning and keep that going? And basically using technology to help us with that. We wanted to look into the newest technology that would allow us to capture all these concerns that we have in online learning. So as I said, our focus on the pedagogy was on learning model. I don't know if you have experienced it or not, but there is a great push to having a business model for our online learning. When I talk about business model, I mean a scale-up model that you would put the courses or put the programs online, and you immediately increase the number of the students that would enroll in the program. So the projection most of the time has been that you start with like 25 students, and in a year or two, you scale up to 115, 120, and then you get 1 or 2 faculty teaching the class, and then you would have tutors or some support that would facilitate the course. That's a business model that has been pushed to us to increase our enrollment, and due to the budget cut, that's even more emphasized nowadays. But we didn't want to do that. As faculty, we were very concerned. We want to stay on our learning model. And our learning model didn't necessarily scale up quickly, but we wanted to make sure that learning is the focus. And then when you look at the learning to be a focus, the emphasis is on experiential learning and project-based, as I said, problem-based learning. And then we value an interaction between the students and among the students and between faculty and the student, a lot of interaction, and also promote collaboration and teamwork. We do a lot of that. And then we emphasize in our programs on a one-on-one coaching and mentoring. So that doesn't really quite fit into the business model that we've been encouraged to adopt to increase enrollment and go into a different kind of revenue generation. So to start with the idea of how we can address all of our concerns and then not necessarily lose that business side, we started looking at what technology is providing us. At the time that we started looking at, these were the technology that we were using. Of course, we had Blackboard as our learning management system that we used our courses, that we delivered our courses through learning management system. We had all kinds of asynchronous interaction communication tools available to us. We also had synchronous management tool. At the time it was Horizon Wimba, and now you know that Horizon Wimba combined with the Illuminate, and they contribute. So we had that, but the quality of the synchronous management system was not very high, because the video feed that you get out of the Wimba is such a blurry, small, low video that it's only a talking head would show up, and it wasn't really appealing that much. But we had been using those tools greatly in our courses. However, we were not quite happy with it. So we started looking, and we saw that there are tons of limitations to what we've been doing. One is if you go completely asynchronous, which the scale-up model basically advised to do, because you can't really have a lot of interaction if you want to have 150 students in a course. So we knew that there would be a limitation to feedback and immediate feedback and more quality feedback, online coaching and mentoring. So these were a lot of limitation related to that. And then the literature focuses a lot in online learning on social presence. Although, through asynchronous you get some social presence, but obviously you can't respond to a lot of emotional social support that are contextualized and are, existed in a physical setting. And it cannot be really transformed into online text-based type environment. So we knew that there were some limitation in that area. So for our new generation of online learning, we wanted to remove all those barriers that we had. The other concern that we had, we were pushed on having a live section and an online section for majority of our courses. So that, because we had a large population of students who were coming to campus and they did not want to be online. And a lot of our non-traditional students actually did like to be online. So we didn't want to lose that group of students. So we had to have a live class and an online class. So it was just like a separation between these two, and at the same time, we had limitation with the technology, so it was not our ideal, plus the fact that the faculty, shortage of faculty because of the budget cut, we didn't get really new faculty, so we ended up teaching overload to be able to run both online and live classes, so that was another area. So we kind of tried to marry these two and started looking at removing all those learning barriers, combining our physical live classes with our online classes so that we do not have this separation, but at the same time, we wanted to keep all the interaction, the mentoring, and everything together. So this was our view, and we wanted to see what kind of technology can do that for us. So we did a lot of a study on what type of technology we would use, tested a lot of synchronous management tools to see which one can do that for us. Can we have a live class and broadcast that to our distance education? And that's what we came up with. We started setting up our classroom. I'll show you a picture of that, so that we have physical classroom for all of our courses. So a student will come to our courses, those who wanted to be physically present. So they would have the class online. All the people that come to the physical class had access to the laptop, and then they would really log into our synchronous management tool, and the distance student will come to our synchronous management tool, but we were all in one place. But then we started looking at the technology. As I said, a lot of synchronous management tool, and Cisco, I don't know if you've heard of Cisco telepresence system. How many of you are familiar with that or using? Yes. So we came across that and said, well, that's going to do it, because at least we will have a pretty nice TV plasma that we can bring students feed into it. And then we would have our video transmitted to our distance student. And we as we talk with them, because previously they had it so that you would have different locations. So a student will go to the locations, and then you would have this telepresence support. But we didn't want to do that. We wanted to make sure that it's still individualized, so that if the students are at their own offices or their own home place, they could still come in to the system with a similar quality video and then be able to participate. And they worked with us. They created this new training, WebEx training synchronous management system that combined with this telepresence. So now, in addition to having the telepresence video conferencing system, we have asynchronous and synchronous management tool that WebEx is offering. and that's a training module, and then you can basically combine these two. So that's basically how our classroom looked like. As you see, the TV, the plasma TV, is bringing the feed from our distance students. So at the time, if you look at that big screen on the left side, at least the 10 low video feed of the students are coming. So if you have 10 students, at any time you can see 10 students, and then as soon as they start talking, the feed is coming through. And you can see the big plasma screen is bringing the students' video feed to the classroom, and then our video feed is going through our WebEx tele system. So it's basically our online and live students are all in the same place, either through video or through physical environment, and then they communicate through synchronous management tool, through our chat, and then our breakout room and everything else. So the two are basically the same. If I can show you that old video, maybe that gives us a little more. Where did it go? But you won't be able to see it, I don't know. So we gotta see that. That's our plasma TV, and that's the WebEx synchronous management system. And as you know, as with all synchronous management, you can get your PowerPoint, you can get all this stuff, polling system, all of this stuff through WebEx. Basically application sharing, so they can share their desktop. Those students who are online, they can share their desktop immediately without any hassle. Very nice. And as you see, as the students are talking, they have two partners from distance. So the distance students are working with our live student right at the same time. So through their laptops, they have the students who are online and they're team working together. So there's not really, we don't just group of students who are in class and then group of students who are online. The online people are grouped with the live people, so there is really no separation. They're just the same. And then they go through the video, and if they need to be in a quiet place, they put their headphone, and then the students are coming through their laptops. Please feel free to stop me at any point if you have any specific questions before we move on. Okay. So this is our study. So we, looking at the literature, we figured out that there are not a lot of studies in looking at this type of setting and see if it's working indeed. So that's what we wanted to figure out. We wanted to figure out whether these synchronous management systems are effective, or asynchronous management system is effective, or this combined system of asynchronous and synchronous and physical and online is working. So we started looking into that, taking our own courses and studying them in more detail. So these were our questions. We want to see if any of these communication systems are having a more effect than the other one. You know that there are lots of studies comparing face-to-face and online, but that's not what we wanted to do. We wanted to be still in an online environment, but we wanted to look at synchronous, asynchronous separately and mix the two of them. And then, as I said, just have that study done within the framework and the environment that we've created. So in our study, we wanted to make sure that those points in the literature are emphasized. Learner-to-learner interaction, learner-to-faculty and instructor interaction, and also learner-to-content interaction and learner-to basically interface interaction. So we wanted to make sure all these 4 components of interaction are emphasized. And again, as I said, we wanted to see, we wanted to have all synchronous and asynchronous because we have both of them, and we wanted to study each one of them to see if they have different effect and also the mixed methodology. So from the literature, there are a couple of areas in online learning that is being emphasized greatly. One is social presence. Social presence has been, in place for a while, in particularly in the communication area, has been studied greatly. So presence is whether you are physically or virtually present in the environment, and your presence make a difference in the student learning and in the students' satisfaction and emotion and also motivation. If you want to think about social presence in an asynchronous environment, in a text-based chat or a forum discussion area, you still have some level of the social presence because people participate in the discussion, and then if faculty provides immediate feedback, again, the social presence existed. If interaction between faculty and the student and among the students are high, you would say we do have some high level of social interaction. But the higher level of social interaction is when you have the physical, contextual, presence as well. Because as you know, in a physical environment like this, we talk with each other, but we also have this context of talking. And we also can see each other and get immediate feedback. It's very different from the asynchronous that students will post something, and then it might be, if not later than a couple hours, sometimes maybe a couple days before they get response to the question that they posted. And the majority of the students that participate in this study say they hated that part because by the time that they got the response back, they've already forgotten about the question that they asked. And they also didn't have any concerns anymore. And the level of emotion and the cognition that was attached to that was already gone. So, but we wanted to make sure that social presence is emphasized. And then immediacy and intimacy. Again, that level of connection that you build among the students is very critical, obviously, in the literature, in the success of online learning. The way you build that most of the time is through this live interaction. We usually connect with each other this way, and then communicate with each other, and then create that level of intimacy that we would like to emphasize in our learning environment. But when it's online, building that is very difficult, but most of the time it's established through teamwork, collaboration, communication among the students. And the best way of doing that, obviously, if you have immediate feedback, simultaneous feedback, and then also be able to physically connect people to each other. So that's a higher level of intimacy, and obviously it's very much related to social presence. And then of course collaboration has been emphasized in the literature as being a big, huge part of online learning and success in online learning in terms of learning results, and motivation and self-regulation. A lot of people argue that online learning environment improves self-regulation because you have to self-discipline yourself and be able to really organize your thoughts, organize your activities so that you can finish with what you do. And that has been, I don't know about your experience, but that has been our real main challenge in our undergraduate courses, because students start an online class, go halfway through, they disappear on us. And there is no way for you to grab them and bring them back. While in a live class, at least they're a captive audience and they can just listen to you, right? But even if they don't do anything, at least you have them right in class so that you can follow up with them. But when they are online, they disappear, they don't do anything. It's much less in the graduate level classes when people intentionally take these courses, not conveniently taking courses. But still, we wanted to know if, it's emphasized in the literature a lot, the motivation level and self-regulation and its relationship with the online learning success. But we wanted to also look at that in our courses. So that's the conceptual framework that we created for our study. We thought that if you, in the middle, that's the online classroom that we were envisioning, that you would have basically synchronous, asynchronous interaction in this classroom. We have physical life together, and on the my right side, the elements that I just talked about that is influencing online learning. And then on the left side, we see the measurement that we use to collect data. Basically, we thought this is going into an online environment, and this is how we're going to decide whether we've been successful or not. So these were the questions that we were asking. I shared that before with you, so for the purpose of time, I passed through. And then we divided our, we targeted 3 courses in spring and fall of 2011. One of the courses is the course that we teach in the Instructional Technology Program, and it's a core course, it's a required course on instructional technology projects and the larger scope or macro level. And the other course was an online learning and computer-based instruction. And then in the fall semester, we had a multimedia class that we teach in this program the same way that I described. So we targeted these 3 courses, and this spring we target again the same course that we taught last year. So basically 4 courses, but the results that I'm sharing with you are for the 2 courses that we repeated last spring and this spring, so that you can see that some of the results were including the other one as we go, because the 2 faculty that were teaching those 2 courses, that they're still working on the data. So the way we organized it was that we started the course and then had a student. For the first meeting, we had an orientation. Of course, the same way that I described. It's a physical and online combined. So we had an orientation meeting with all the students. And then once they were oriented to the course, which mainly just showed the syllabus, the course website, and the setting that we were using. Then the first 2 weeks of our instruction, which was just 1 module in our course, was conducted completely asynchronous. So they were not allowed to use phone, they were not allowed to use chat, or any kind of synchronous tool, or Meet Live. So we said you could use forum, you could use email, you could use all the materials that is online, and still you have to do your teamwork, right? We still had projects for them. So the whole umbrella of the pedagogy was a project-based. So they got a project or a problem for the 2 weeks that they had to work. And then we teamed them, the online and live people were teamed up together, so they had to complete their teamwork, but no synchronous discussion whatsoever. So that was the limitation. And then for the next 2 module, or next 2 weeks, which was module number 2, we switched to completely synchronous. This time we said, no email, you can't use email. We won't be using discussion forum. So you could really talk with your partners or your team members through Skype, through our WebEx, through Wimba, or any kind of synchronous tool. You could use phone. You could, if some of you meet live with the online people being online, you could do that. But no email, no forum, no asynchronous. Okay? And then for the third module, 2 weeks again, we used a mixed methodology, just like what we use mainly. Synchronous and asynchronous tools combined with no limitation in that area. How am I doing with time? Okay. All right, so as I said, we targeted 4 graduate courses, and these are the number of students that we had in classes, because we have different number of students. Some of the core classes are a little larger than the small class, but we still kept our 15 students in each class so far. We've been able to keep that as a cap for our graduate courses. Of course, as I said, there is a push to increase that, but that's our basically number of students. And then for the methodology, as you saw with our collection of data, we used both qualitative and quantitative data. We had several surveys that we used for self-regulation, social presence, satisfaction, and motivation. So we used a lot of that, and we collected numerical data for those. And then we had students responding with qualitative question at the end of each module. We had them keep, we had faculty who were teaching the classes, keep logs and make sure that they, just would write whatever they feel during that week, so that we would not lose that. We had a lot of communication online, so forum discussion were downloaded for the syntax that they use. We asked the student to archive when they use synchronous, so that we can get the archive of the discussion during the live interaction that they had. So we collected a lot of data. That's why it's taking us forever to synchronize it. All of the data, put them all together in one setting to make sense of it, to cross-examine that. That's the procedure as I explained it. Right at the beginning of the class, the students were introduced to the problem that they were going to solve. And then they would create this small group, we would create a small group discussion for them. They had a week for obviously this is for a synchronous part, so they would have a forum discussion, we would have a general class forum discussion, and we would have a small group forum discussion. So we had 2 forum discussions going simultaneously. And then students were able to work, as I said, asynchronously, no synchronous material. And the students submitted their assignments at the end of the module. So they had a problem to work with for 2 weeks, and then they worked in their groups asynchronously, and then they submitted their project in the Dropbox area. And then the faculty would read the assignment and provide feedback, written feedback. The forum area, again, the participation was basically initiated by faculty, and then the student continued discussion. In the group discussion, the discussion was initiated by the group, and the faculty did not participate in the group discussion. For the synchronous, we followed the same kind of format as far as pedagogy goes. So again, we gave it a new problem that the students will have to solve for the new module. This time, again, they were teamed up. We did not try to change teams. That's our again, another idea that is coming from literature, that in online environment, usually you don't want to change teams, because by the time that they get used to through norming and storing, and it's the whole week is gone. So we did not change the team. So the teams stayed the same, but this time they only worked synchronously. And then again, the same process for this discussion was only synchronous, as we met as a group, as a large group, faculty and students, and we interacted. Most of the time we divided up into groups, and they did the group work right during the physical or live setting. And then later, if they needed to discuss, they would have to use phone or other synchronous tools. And then for the mixed method, of course, we didn't have any limitations, so the way I described it, it was just, again, the pedagogy was the same, but just the tools were more available. This is an example of the type of problem that they would get. It's very open-ended. Didn't have really a right answer to it. So they had to really figure things out on their own. Not easy to solve. And then this is the type of feedback that students will receive from the faculty. Most of the time the feedbacks are not corrective. They're basically more informative, that you may want to look at this, or have you looked at that, or what about this question, and that type of thing. So it's not really a lot of, you did it wrong or you did it right, because the problem is as such that doesn't lend itself to correction. And as I said, we used mixed methodology, a lot of cross-examination, because we had different tools and different method that we use, so it's a lot of different data from different places, so we try to cross-examine them as we went. This is a demographic for the two courses that I explained, that I'm going to share the results. As I said, the students were very different from the age and the background. Some of them were really experienced professionals. Some of them were more like a younger graduate student, just came from undergraduate to graduate program. So there were a range of different groups. And we had, as I said, in each class, the number of distance students differed. Sometimes we have 6, 7 students at distance, and the rest were coming to class. And the option that we have, even for our campus students, they can decide to stay home if they choose to, and just log into the class. But many of them choose to come. They just don't like to be online. But they absolutely love the fact that if they have a sick child at home, or if they've been at work and they're very exhausted and they can't drive to campus, they can still stay home and participate in the classroom. Okay, so this is the background of the students. The results. We adopted a motivation and self-regulation survey for assessing the level of intrinsic, extrinsic, task value, control of learning, beliefs, and then self-efficacy and self-regulation. We conducted this survey right at the beginning, before a student going through the course, and then the students took that at the end of each module, at the end of completely synchronous, at the end of completely asynchronous, and at the end of the mixed method. So we had pre and post for the self-regulation. Okay. Basically, what we found, not really much of the difference in the students' motivation from the beginning to end of each of the modules, with a slightly, improvement in a mixed method. Our suspicion is that a lot of our students coming into our program, as I said, they're all graduate students, and they come to the program with a high level of motivation to begin with. So when they completed the motivation self-regulation, they already rated themselves pretty high. So there was not really much place for improvement, and we did not see a significant difference in their rating at the end of each of these experiments. But as I said, there was a slight difference in several areas of motivation, particularly with regard to intrinsic and extrinsic, and basically self-regulation a little bit at the end of the mixed module. But for the rest of them, not really much of the difference. Okay, so these are specific with regard to what areas they scored a little higher, but in general, really didn't make a big difference. And it seems like a student right from the beginning were intrinsically motivated. But at the end, some of them seem to be a little more extrinsic because they started realizing that maybe they have, scored themselves a little high on their control of their learning, and then they decided that maybe I need to rethink. I'm not as much as I thought I would be in control of my work. So a little difference, but not substantial. That's why we did that this semester to see if that stays the same, and indeed it did. Okay. As I said, the mixed method was a little more positive with regard to changes. With the social presence, again, we used another, set of questions that is specifically focused on the social presence. Again, we didn't see much of the difference among the three, and when we cross-examined that, the presence of the faculty in all three forms of experiment was very high. So it did not, it seems like we're going back to Richard Clark's point that is that the method, or is that the media? I think in this case, we proved that it's a method, really. It's not that, the media making a big, huge difference, although it does make some difference in some other areas, but with the social presence, as long as faculty was pretty present, but it definitely changed it during the mixed method. So they got a lot more, showed a lot more of the social presence satisfaction at the end of the mixed methodology. And they definitely, in their qualitative responses to the question that we gave them, they absolutely hated the completely asynchronous. And they, as I said, again, that might be due to the type of learners that we have, but the issues that they brought up was that, for one, I forget to go online every single day. And by the time that I go back online, they're like a big, huge list of forum discussion that I have to read, and I usually don't get to read them. So I don't like it, I'm not in touch. And then they said it's very difficult to remember what you said before and then follow through. So they said I usually just read a couple of students and then go back, and so they didn't like that. But they also didn't like the time that they were completely synchronous, that they were not able to use email or other means, and they said that kind of, we got used to it, now you're telling us what we shouldn't be using, so they didn't like that either. Okay, satisfaction. Student satisfaction was pretty high to begin with, but there were some differences. As I said, the satisfaction was much, much higher in the mixed method. They liked it, they didn't see any difficulty with that. And that told us that the system that we're using, this removing social and emotional separation that we had in online and live classes is completely removed now. So they don't feel like they are at distance. Those distance students, they feel like they're connected with the live student. They're very, very much friendly. Indeed, one of them decided this semester to come on campus and meet with other students. And then she came and said, the only thing that is different is your look sometimes is a little different from the look that I got through the video. But other than that, they seem to know each other pretty well. So even if they were completely at distance and never met any of the students on campus. So student satisfaction was high across the three, but much higher at the mixed method. The student learning experiences, that was very interesting. It's very time consuming to score that. It seems like during asynchronous, the discussion kind of went much faster. Students tend to just focus on a specific thing and get things done, but the quality of work was not really as high. As opposed to synchronous, that when you listen to their discussion during the synchronous discussion, you see a lot of give and take that it did not happen in the asynchronous. In asynchronous, they were like, okay, can you do this? And then they bring that, and then they wrap things up quickly. But in asynchronous, they discussed, they had a lot of give and take, and went above and beyond the problem sometimes. But then, since they did not have the chance of putting everything together asynchronously, they had to decide, like synchronously, to submit. The quality of the final product was not as high as the discussion was. So the discussion was elaborate, was very much give and take, everyone responded, but then when they pulled it together to submit, the quality was not as high. As opposed to asynchronous, that they did spend a lot of time discussing, but then since they had the chance of just looking at each other's responses and putting it together, the actual product was looking better. And the best product obviously was in the mixed method, because they discussed it and then they had enough time to sit down and put together and they examined that, so the quality, their scores for the final project for the mixed method was very, very high. It's indeed the learning outcome results, they showed a significant difference among the different courses. So the quality communication, as I said, was really much better during the mixed method, but much shorter during asynchronous. So these are the factors that we teased out again, not very different from what the literature already saying, that immediacy of responses during discussion made a big difference. Okay? The interpersonal relationship with peers and instructors seem to be impacting satisfaction and motivation. It's very clear. And as I said, it's not very different from what the literature figured out. Obviously, the nature of assignment had a lot to do. So if we didn't have this problem that was really ill-structured and the student had to work and talk and do things to be able to solve something, they may not have had this much of the interaction that they had. So the nature of the assignment had a big influence on the student's level of performance, and then access to various communication tools obviously has some impact, as we saw. And then learning style. We also asked the student to complete the learning style, forgot to mention, before they started the course. And it seemed like in the qualitative responses, those learning styles came to play a role. Because some of them, for example, said, oh, I usually like to work on my own, but this mode of communication helped me become a lot more social than I usually are. But I'm usually in that kind of environment. I'm not really as social as I should be. And some people who were very people-oriented and social, they said that working asynchronously had them do a lot of independent work and started learning to work individually, independently. So it seemed like learning style had a lot to do. But the issues that the student mentioned was flexibility in time. They said that had some kind of, thank you so much. I have a bad allergy. And so basically, the positives that they mentioned about asynchronous was flexibility of time. So we all know that they don't have to come at a certain time to participate in the synchronous. So they like that fact, that they were flexible. And ability to reflect and form ideas, because asynchronous obviously provides that, while in synchronous environment you have to immediately respond. And then self-dependency, as I said, several of them mentioned in each of the courses, that I started depending on myself a lot, rather than listening to others and forming my ideas around people's ideas. So they started thinking on their own. And then improvement in writing and communicating. They all mentioned that as well. For the synchronous communication, again, as I said, these are the positives that they mentioned. Immediacy of the response and feedback, they loved it. Ability to build a relationship, they thought it was much, much easier to get to know other people and work with them. And then feel of being socially connected, they thought that that was a lot stronger in a synchronous environment. An ability to check understanding in the context of the discussion. A lot of them said, I really don't like the fact that I'm going to have to work on my own and come up with my own views, because when I listen to our discussion, I kind of change sometimes my ideas. And it was hard to get that feel from the asynchronous, because, as I said, many of them said, I don't get to read everyone's, and it's kind of hard to get to know how people are saying things, and text is saying different things than people say it, so a lot of this type of thing. And then ability to communicate immediate thoughts. So what are we saying? Obviously, our experiment with these courses, it shows that the model that we developed for the online learning, it's not popular yet. Not a lot of universities are investing in combining these two, because it obviously requires some kind of equipment setting, because we had to get a grant and spend about $30,000 to reorganize our classroom, so that we have all the video and the plasma, and then the purchase of the WebEx training system. So we did have some support to build our classrooms. There are two of them. One is a big one for our engineering program that we use it a lot, and ours is in a smaller scope because we also have individual connection to the system. So it does require some money, but in the long term, I guess it's paying off, because our satisfaction of the students for our program is 100%. We do not have any dropout in our distance student. So we have been tested, we've been using the student response system around campus as another measure, and our program is scoring the highest in all distance education programs on campus. So it seems like it's working. It's definitely working when you combine, but whether we can do that, we can scale up this type of online learning or not, that's a question that I'm posing to all of you to think about. The other issue is, how are we keeping up with the motivation? I'm not sure with the scale-up asynchronous business model, we're really able to get the students motivated and excited about their own learning. I'm not even sure if learning to the extent that we wanted to happen is happening in a scale-up business type model. Role of interaction is it's definitely critical, and in the social presence and all the issues that we discussed. And as I said again, even if the idea is not new, this experiment told us again that go back and take a look at the pedagogy versus media. Is that completely media? So what if we have changed our pedagogy? What if we didn't have problem-based learning? What if we didn't have project-based learning? What if we didn't have collaboration? What if each student worked on their own on the self-directed modules and took the test and did the assignment as the business models basically suggested? Would we have the same results? It seems like pedagogy playing a big, huge role in the environment. So, but technology obviously facilitates that. So if we didn't have this system, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing right now. But I think making these two stand up to the point that we can see how much of the influence is pedagogy, and to what extent pedagogy impacting communication tools, and then communication tools on pedagogy. Obviously, we're showing that they're very, very interrelated, but we cannot forget about pedagogy when it comes to online learning. But that's the main concern that we had right from the beginning, as I said, with regard to learning. Okay, thank you very much.